Hi, and welcome to my channel. Today we're going to be doing a Book of Mormon Tidbits video, and we're going to be talking about foundations again and 5 points that are important to remember in building a foundation. So I'm really excited to share my insights with you. This has been really fun for me to prepare. So if you are new to my channel, I created this channel as a homeschooling resource to do different curriculum ideas, organizational ideas, and ways to invite Christ into your homeschool space. So if you're interested in those things, please hit that subscribe button and let's talk about foundations. So we're going to talk about foundations today and just 5 points to remember, some different things that I've thought about as I've studied them, and I'm so excited to share these insights with you. And I have my notes because sometimes when I write things down, it sounds better at that moment and it's just hard for me to replicate it. So I might read from these occasionally just because it sounds better. So there you go. Here we go. We got the notes, we got the scriptures. And so last month I made a video about foundations. It was kind of an intro video, and we talked about Samuel the Lamanite and the Nephites and building a foundation, and the Nephites having this sure foundation on Christ. So if you are interested in watching that video, I'll link it up here and put it down below in the description box and you can go view it. And then also any talks or anything I mentioned in this video, I will link down in my blog post below. So if you're interested in reading those further, you can look there. So I think that's all the housekeeping things. So we're actually going to talk about building a foundation today. And I just want to start off by saying I am not an expert builder in any way. Like, I have never physically built a house, not like from foundation up. I haven't even, our house was 8 months old when we bought it. So I've never actually gone through that process or anything. So the experience that I have is from living in a home that was over 100 years old and taking care of it and sort of restoring it and just redoing. Some of it was restoration, but not completely. And then also just from living in a new community, I am fascinated by watching people build houses behind my house. And so I've learned a lot from that, and then I go look it up and research it some more. So that's kind of where my breadth of knowledge comes from. So I am not claiming to be an expert. So if I say anything during the video that maybe is not how you think, or maybe you're a builder and you're like, no, then I'm sorry. This is just what I've learned from my experience. So I wanted to preface that. So there we go. Take it easy on me. So before we start talking about physical foundations, I wanted to jump into 3rd Nephi because that's where we're at right now, and come follow me. And I just wanted to share a few things, insights, I guess, that I've gained as I've learned more and more about foundations. So we're going to be in 3rd Nephi 11. This is an amazing chapter. This is when Christ comes to the Americas. And I love the process it goes through because it teaches us about foundations. You maybe have not thought about it that way, but it totally does. So it comes in, verse 10, he says, I am Jesus Christ, whom the prophets testified shall come into the world. And he continues to go, I am the light and the life of the world. And then he has the people come up and touch him, see the prints in his hands and in his feet and in his side, and recognize who he is, that he is the savior of the world. He's the one that Samuel said would come, that he would die for them, he'd suffer for them, all these things. He's that person. He's telling them that that's who he is. And then he goes on to teach them about baptism, about the priesthood. He calls apostles, and he just goes through all these things, something similar to the Sermon on the Mount, teaching them the commandments and how to live this higher law and not the law of Moses anymore. And he is teaching them through this whole process that he is the foundation, and that these are the things you need to do to build your foundation on Christ. So you need to be baptized. You have these priesthood ordinances, all these things he's going through. So I love this example. So as you read through it now and next time you read it, think about it that way, that Christ is saying, I'm the foundation, I'm the savior, and then these are the things that you need to do to build your foundation on me. And he just goes right into it, giving them instruction on what they need to be doing. So I just really love that. And it just helps strengthen my testimony as I learn more about foundations, as I see physical foundations being built outside my house, how so many things in the world testify of Christ. And they teach us constantly about these basic principles. So if we're willing to open our eyes and ask for personal revelation, we'll be able to receive it and just gain deeper understanding, which is what I felt I have gained. So when we build a house, what do we need to do first? What needs to happen first? So we need a plan. That needs to be first. And so last fall, I watched them put in this road behind my house, and obviously they had some sort of plan. Again, I don't know how detailed these things are, how closely they're followed, but I feel I wouldn't be able to put in this road and put in all the plumbing and the electrical they did without having a plan of knowing, okay, this is where the houses are gonna go, this is where all of this needs to line up, so that next year when we're building houses, it's all gonna work out. And if you don't have this plan, you know, mistakes are gonna be made, and it's gonna cost money and time to have to go in and fix them. So having a plan for the road and then for the house itself is very, very important for you to be able to build a house. And in the church, we might call this more of like a spiritual kind of creation, right? You're putting this plan down on paper or like a blueprint type of a thing so that you can kind of think about it and see, okay, this is gonna work and this is not. And then you can actually go and physically create it. So number one, having a plan. It's important, make sure you have some sort of a plan. So the next thing that starts to happen is everything starts getting marked and they start to dig. And as I watched them start to dig in my backyard, it was a very, very cool process for me. And this is where my second point comes up, is one person was in the backhoe, is that what we call it? I don't even know. I don't know what all the construction things are called. But so one person's digging and then the other person is down in the foundation that's already been dug, and then, you know, they continue moving around as it gets dug. That just sounds like a weird word anyway. And so they're down there with a measuring stick and they're measuring to make sure they're where they're supposed to be, they're at the depth they're supposed to be, all these things, and kind of guiding the person that is up there digging, you know, because they can only see so well of what they're doing. You know, it's just like, oh, I'm just digging a hole here. But, you know, to have to get out and measure all by themselves and make sure they're where they're supposed to be, I can't even imagine how long that would take for one person. So the second point is you can't build a foundation alone. Like, you need help. Maybe you could build it alone if you're very ambitious and have loads of time on your hands and lots of room to make mistakes. Then maybe you could do it on your own. But the beauty is we don't have to. So these people, they go in, they help. Everyone has certain jobs they're doing. They're all, you know, working together and trying to get the job done and get it done right so they don't have to redo it. So that is number two. You're not building a foundation alone, and you don't have to, and it's near impossible to do it by yourself. So the next thing that happens is the footings are poured, and they support the foundation and kind of prevent settling from the house. And also in my research, I've learned that the footings are usually wider, and I've physically seen that they are wider. That is because they distribute the weight of the house more evenly and, you know, just kind of make sure everything stays where it's supposed to, at least hopefully. So as I watch them pour footings in my backyard, I see them stick this rebar in it, and it's shaped like an L. And so this L part goes into the bottom and sticks up perpendicular from this footing that they have. And then they'll come in with the forms and put the forms up and pour more cement. So now you're getting your foundation cement walls going up, and this rebar is still running through that. And then the rebar sticks out the top just a little bit. And then they're gonna put a wood sill plate over the top of that, and it's gonna connect onto these rebar pieces that are sticking out the top. So every aspect of the foundation, from the footings to the sill plate, is attached by this rebar. So I want you to remember that, because that's my third point, is to remember that all these things are attached through this rebar. They're all connected, not just like these floating entities there. So isn't building just amazing? I just think it is the coolest thing, just going through this. Obviously this was a quick overview of everything, but I just think it is so, so cool. And so I want to take these 3 points, plus I'm going to add 2 more points, our 4th and 5th point, and apply it to our spiritual foundation and how this is going to help us. So I'm just going to review these points so that they're kind of fresh in our head as I go into the spiritual idea of them. So number 1 is to make sure we have a plan. Number 2 is we're not building our foundation alone. Okay, there's always somebody there to help. Number 3 is all parts of our life need to be tied to our foundation. Number 4, we're going to talk more about this, but when you cheat yourself, you cheat others. And I'm going to mention more about that in a minute. And then number 5 is we are constantly adding strength to our foundation. At least we should be. So number 1 is to always have a plan. And I just wanted to mention something from Elder Hallstrom. He had a talk. I will try to link it. I think this was a complicated one. There's a few talks that were complicated to find still. So I don't know if I have a good format, but if I do, I will put it down in my blog post below so you could read it, because it was excellent. It was super, super well done, and I loved it. So he said about this spiritual plan, this vision we need to have. He said, vision is the ability to see. In a gospel context, we sometimes call this eternal perspective. As Jacob described it, it is seeing things as they really are and things as they really will be. So in Moses, we read about this a little bit, about this spiritual creation. So I'm just going to turn there real quick and read it to you, because I really think this verse is so helpful. And I'm going to start kind of midway through, but it says, "For I, the Lord God, created all things of which I have spoken spiritually before they were naturally upon the face of the earth." And if you've been to the temple, you understand this probably to a deeper depth than some other people maybe. Maybe not, I don't know. But this idea of creating this plan, of having this plan first, and then actually physically creating it. So you want to have a vision of how you want to live the gospel. Okay, so are you gonna read your scriptures every day? Are you gonna say your prayers multiple times a day? Church every week? Family home evening? What's your temple attendance gonna look like? Okay, this is you creating a plan to keep your foundation strong, to make sure you build that foundation and you keep it strong. So this is the plan for you. So I want you to think about those things, to go through and think, oh, do I kind of have a plan? And maybe you need to write it down. Some people that might be more helpful. Maybe you don't need to write it down, or you can just think about it, or you're just already in a routine that it's fine for you. But just something to consider is making sure that you have a set plan, because if you are struggling with doing those types of things, then maybe you need to write it down and maybe just start with 1 or 2 things and then work up to more things. So just have that spiritual plan in place. So the second thing for our spiritual foundation is, as we're building and rebuilding this foundation, we're not doing it alone. We have family, we have community, we have church members, all these different people to help us, and we have Christ. That's like the most important thing is for us to remember, is that we have Christ. When we think there's nobody else willing to help us, he's always there willing to help us, to get down in the dirt with us. I think he loves it that way. He wants to meet us where we are, and he will get down and get dirty with us as we dig and try to get this foundation right. He's always there with us, right, every step of the way. So I just think that's so important for us to remember, because I feel like we're hesitant to ask for help, and so many more people would be willing to help us if we just ask them. I think a lot of people are willing to get down and dirty in the foundation, but we aren't willing to ask. I don't know if it's a pride issue, or we're worried what they'll think of us, which is also goes along with pride. But I think we just need to let that go and realize that we all need each other's help, and that we don't have to build this foundation on Christ by ourselves. We can have so much help. So the third thing is, all parts of our life need to tie back to Christ. This idea that this rebar runs throughout this whole foundation and then ties into the rest of the house. Our whole life needs to tie back to Christ. It needs to reflect Christ. Everything that we're doing needs to reflect Christ. And I'm just gonna read what I wrote, because I like how it sounds. But so we can have a beautiful house, but if the foundation isn't strong, it doesn't matter. The more we tie Christ throughout our whole life, the stronger we will be. There's a lot of people that appear to have a perfect life, but then the littlest thing pushes them out of the church because the foundation on Christ was never there. Okay, so you can have this beautiful, beautiful home, but if the foundation is not there, it doesn't matter. Again, there's a lot of people that may look like they're doing everything they're supposed to. They're checking all the boxes on the outside, but on the inside, they're not tied to their foundation. They're not tied to Christ. Okay, and we just need to make sure that everything that we're doing in our lives reflects Christ and ties back to him. So the fourth point I want to mention is, when you cheat yourself, you cheat others. Normally you hear the saying that goes, if you cheat, you're only cheating yourself. That is a completely false statement. It's so, so false, and I don't want us to believe it at all. And here's why. Because even if you think about it in a school setting, if you decide to cheat on a test, and you're going to be affecting a lot of people. So you decide to cheat, that maybe it affects the averages on the test. That's just like a minimal thing. but maybe other people see you cheat or you brag about cheating. So then they're like, oh, okay, if they cheat, then it's okay for me to cheat. But then if that continues to be who you are, a person that's willing to give up their integrity, then that will filter into who you are as an adult and the children you raise and generations down the line. Cheating doesn't just affect you, it affects everybody else. And I know that seems a little bit dramatic, but I think it's so important for us to remember that everything we do is affecting ourselves and it's affecting other people as well. So in this gospel spiritual foundation idea, those things that we are doing right now to build our spiritual foundation, they are affecting us and others. So if we cheat ourselves, if we cut corners and decide, oh, it's okay if I don't read my scriptures every day, you know, maybe if I get it in occasionally and it's like sort of sincere, and maybe if I kind of pray and then I'll just look at the temple, that's probably good enough. You know, if you kind of get into that kind of mindset, then that's the person you're going to become. You're cheating yourself and then you're cheating others out of what they could become, because now you're not as dedicated to Christ as you could have been. And so all these other people, your posterity, your friends, see your example, and pretty soon they're not as close to Christ as they could have been because you made poor decisions. And so I just want you to remember that even though, yes, we get in this mindset that it's just all about you and everything you're doing is just affecting you, it's not true. That is Satan telling us that that's true, and it's not true. Everything we are doing now is affecting generations and not just our direct posterity. It's affecting whoever they would have interacted with or who we would have as missionaries or as just people in general, talking to our neighbors. So what we're doing now is impacting so many people that we will probably never meet in this life, but it's still impacting them. So we need to remember that and teach our children that and make sure that we're following Christ instead of following the other guy. Okay, so the last thing, the fifth thing I wanted to mention is that we are constantly adding strength to our foundation. And I want to illustrate this point by sharing an example. So like I said, we owned over 100-year-old home, however you'd say it. It was built in 1900, so it was old. And I don't have any pictures of the foundation inside the house, at least nothing good. This was before I had like a smartphone. Well, I had it for the last like year we were there, but anyway, so I wasn't like clicking photos away. I still am not like that, but anyways, let's get back on track. So there's a retaining wall that I do have quite a bit of pictures of, and it is probably the same age as the home. I don't know for sure, but I would bet it is. And so here's some pictures of it, and it was a mess. It has cracks all through it. The corner of it had been hit and it fell apart. I don't have a picture of that. I just have a picture of the fixed wall. But ideally, you would want to come in, rip out this whole wall and redo it all. But we could not afford to do that. You know, as college students, even now, that would still be very expensive to go in and tear out that whole wall and have to redo the whole thing. And it would just honestly be too much for the house, because the house is old, the wall is old. You know, it's like when I don't even know what the word is, when you make your house too nice for the neighborhood, that's basically what would have happened if we had actually redone this whole wall. So anyways, my dad helped us and we just kind of filled in some cracks. We made our own little form for the corner and filled it with cement, you know, and tried to make things look as nice as possible. And then I went in and with some special paint for, you know, for concrete for outside, and I repainted everything and it looked loads better, like loads better. And it still was a mess. If you look, like it still has cracks all through it, like it's not even, like it's still eventually will need to be torn out and probably redone again. But guys, I love those cracks, especially as we talk about foundations, because we are going to get cracks in our foundation. And maybe in our house, we don't want, you know, big cracks in that foundation. That might not be good because, I don't know, structurally, that just doesn't sound like a good idea to me. But I don't know that much about all that like upkeep on a house foundation. But when I think about it in a spiritual sense and so I look at this retaining wall that we fixed, even though it's still eventually gonna need to be refixed, it would have had to have been, I don't know, I can't talk right now. We would have had to fix it sooner if we hadn't fixed some of those cracks and that wall that was crumbling because it just kept losing all of its insides. Okay, so we needed to fix it at least a little bit, at least do what we could, and then, it's gonna last a little bit longer. And that's our lives as well. If we let all these cracks just keep coming into our foundation, it's going to crumble. And the longer we take to fix them, the sooner it is going to crumble and just fall away. But if we take some time to turn to Christ and fix all these cracks, then we'll have this sure foundation. And I love that we can afford to fix our spiritual foundation because Christ has already paid. He already paid for that cost, for all those cracks, all those mistakes that we're making. He's already paid for them. And so even though, we were poor college students at that time, we couldn't afford to fix that wall. Spiritually, we can afford to fix our walls because Christ has already paid the price for those walls to be fixed. We just have to be willing to put in the effort and the work to do it. And I love that so much. Our foundations are not just something that we just build and then they're just there and we never have to come back to them. So it's like, how do we keep them strong? I want you to really think about how we can keep them strong. And this answer, you're gonna hate it. You're gonna absolutely hate it because it's something, if you've been in the church your whole life, you've heard it since you were little. It's those primary answers, read your scriptures, go to church, say your prayers, go to the temple, do service. These very, very basic primary answers are how we're fixing those cracks and how we can prevent those cracks as well. That's it. I know it's the most frustrating thing in the whole world. Why do they always give me those answers? You know why? Because it works. Those simple things every single day are what give us the strength. And I want you to think about it if you don't believe this. In a secular sense, think about learning how to play the piano or playing basketball or being an artist. How do those people become good at those things that they're doing? It's from little bits of practice every single day. That's how they become good at it. My son's in piano right now, and just the little bits of practice every day are so important. Yes, he could learn some similar things if he would just practice once a week, but it wouldn't be quite as strong as if he's doing it as when he does it every single day. He's able to build upon those things and have it more clear in his mind and his memory, and also think about it throughout the day, which is how it works with the scriptures and prayers too. It can be on our mind throughout the day when we're doing it on a daily basis. And then when these people that, become amazing pianists, become NBA players, that's, very small population. I'm not saying that's what we're all gonna be. Or, famous artists, or, these things become their jobs, their occupations. They still practice every single day, guys. Even they might enjoy it more, and they might even practice tons more than they used to do because now this is what they do with their life. But they still do something every single day. Even the best basketball players practice every single day. So it's so important for us to remember that these little things that we do every day are what define who we become in our life. If we choose to play basketball every day, I'm not saying all of us are going to become amazing basketball players because there's a lot of things that go into that. But if that's what you choose to focus on, your life is going to be defined by basketball. Okay, if you choose to focus on Christ and have those little things seep in, with prayers, scriptures, all that stuff every single day, then your life is going to be defined by Christ. And so it's so important to see what is filling my life? And I want to read this to you because, again, it just sounds better. I can just say it a lot better on my paper than I can actually vocalizing it. So let's read it. Doing the little things every day is key to having a strong foundation. I have learned in my life that the single most thing that determines success is summed up in one word: consistency. If I could teach anybody any single word ever, that would be the word consistency. It is so, so important. Whether in parenting, living the gospel, anything you do, consistency is key to success. Consistency is the most important thing, and those things we choose to be consistent in determine who we will be. Whether that is scriptures, prayers, and service, or video games, crude language, immodest clothes, drinking, the list goes on and on. The things we choose to be consistent in determines who we will be. So look at your life and see what fills your days. Is that who you want to be? Is that what will strengthen your foundation or knock you over when the slightest storms come? So I want you to think about that over the next month, because next month I'm going to talk about the framing of a house and talk about these winds that are going to come, because it's not if they'll come, it's when they will come. And we need to make sure our foundation is strong so that we will not get knocked over. You guys, I hope you can see how important this is to me. I hope you can feel how important it is for us to understand this, how God wants us to understand this, and just to have a strong foundation in Christ. And I love you all so much. I'm grateful for you, for those that stuck around and watched this whole video, because I'm sure it got kind of long. And I'm just grateful for all your love and support. So please give me a thumbs up if you enjoy seeing these videos, and I will see you next month.